So, have you ever had one single aspect of a game completely take over the experience? On top of that, have it, one, be an aspect from the previous title that was just okay, but not the greatest in the world, and two, have it be such a mind-boggling improvement that it completely alters your playstyle? Well, let me tell you about Metro Last Light and the absolutely unexpected stealth masterpiece it turned out to be. So sit back, relax, grab yourself a nice bowl of mushrooms, a swamp shrimp steak, and a few dozen cookies, and prepare for the opinions you did not ask for. Let's go. So, to be entirely honest with you, Metro Last Light kinda threw me off. On one hand, it was everything I loved about the first game, the absolutely amazing setting of the Moscow Metro, and the utterly terrifying mutant creatures skulking about the dark tunnels. The fascists still somehow doing fascist things, even with the looming threat of post-nuclear war annihilation by radiation. Yeah, I guess that tracks, honestly. And the absolutely brutal survival aspects of the series that ranks Metro well within the must-play survival horror games. And I'm very happy to see all these things. Metro 2033 did so many things so right that I don't really have any complaints seeing all of these same aspects return in full force in Last Light. However, I don't really know how to explain this. Metro Last Light was a little strange for me in the way that, yeah, sure, the story changed, while still revolving around the silent protagonist of Artyom, it manages to focus more in on the fate of the Metro itself, who is or will be in control, and what each group is willing to do to either retain or seize the reins and rule the Metro. Last Light also had a great way of tying into the previous entry, picking up roughly a year after a very specific ending of 2033, and while the main threat of that game, namely the Dark Ones, do make an appearance again in Last Light, they don't really seem to be the main focus here. That is more reserved for what is actually going on with the humans of the Metro. Sure, the Dark Ones have their part to play in Last Light, but I rather enjoyed their position as almost a side story in an effort to truly close out the events of 2033, which, to be honest, is really nice to see. Last Light effectively picks up from the ending where Artyom annihilated the Dark Ones, so the game running with a different main threat in the form of another faction of humans while still managing to tie in the fate of the Dark Ones and their purpose here was a cool little shakeup. Much better than essentially spending the whole first game trying to stop the Dark Ones, launching the missiles, then loading into Last Light and finding out you missed. Whoops, I guess. Overall, I think I want to say Last Light's story is an improvement over 2033. Granted, it still does have its flaws, much like 2033 did, and yeah, while I could go on again about Artyom being a silent protagonist, yet having a voice actor in the loading screens, that's still a decision I don't fully get anyway. This time around, thankfully, the NPCs didn't draw as much attention to it, and truthfully, that helped quite a bit to hide the awkwardness of the decision to keep him silent that existed in the first game. Here, it seems they went more with, oh, they're going to talk to Artyom and immediately leave, so there's not really time for a rebuttal, instead of in 2033, where they asked you a dead set question and just assumed you answered the way you wanted them to. Yeah, I still think that was a little weird, but anyway. So yeah, I was glad to see that improvement in Last Light, as it was one of my more major complaints with 2033. This time, however, if there was any one flaw I could assign to the story or game as a whole when it came to Last Light, it would have to be how rushed some of it feels. I don't know if this is a side effect of Metro's relatively short runtime when it comes to their games. I believe I clocked Last Light's first playthrough around 10 hours, or if this is a deliberate choice on the writer's part, but I do feel like, similar to 2033, Last Light seems to rev up right as it ends, which on the one hand has me itching to get to Exodus to answer some looming questions, but also, well, causes weird subplot progressions like, well, this.
To feel that I'm alive. Touch me.
Okay, I get that they may have wanted to sow the seeds of romance between Anna and Artyom. When they were trying to sow these seeds, I have no idea. We have all of 3 conversations between us that all end with us being separated, and they're not exactly the nicest conversation. Not like you're talking about going on a date or something. You kind of don't like each other in the first 2, so that was interesting. But yeah, there's that. And look, I get it. They're heading into an event that could spell the end of the Metro and their lives as a whole, but this whole scene just feels wildly awkward and out of place. One, it feels way too goddamn rushed to be believable, and 2, I didn't really get what they were going for until she was literally nearly on top of Artyom. So yeah, it was wildly unexpected and didn't really know where it came from. Am I crazy? Did I miss something? If you've played Last Light, please let me know if I completely missed like an entire section between them, or if this felt like it came out of left fucking field. I don't know, maybe I'm complaining too much about that. But at the end of the day, even with the weirdly rushed romantic subplot, I genuinely think the story of Last Light was an overall improvement. But here's where it gets strange. Even with a different story, the game didn't feel any any different from 2033. And I don't mean from a performance standpoint. I can't deny the improvements in that regard have the game feeling amazing. Movement and shooting are far more fluid, aiming and switching between targets is snappier, and the game at every pace looks and plays better. What I mean is, for the majority of my first playthrough, I felt like I was playing 2033. The Metro was still its same old self, utterly terrifying winding dark tunnels, emphasis on dark this time around, holy fuck, with danger lurking around every turn. Whether it be the multitude of mutants looking for a quick meal, or to apparently lay eggs in your chest cavity, thanks for that, or the utterly insane amount of fascists and communists that have seemingly missed the memo that the world has ended as a result of the war they most likely started, and assumingly ended quite abruptly with a few nukes, yet somehow still think their ideology that got them here is worth pursuing. I don't know, do you boys? And finally, that brutal fight for survival that I have come to adore in the series. Ammo is not plentiful, but not so scarce that it feels cheaper over the top. A constant emphasis on managing your filters to not get caught out and frantically needing to turn over every rock and decaying corpse looking for one last breath of fresh air. And that amazing system of your currency being the bullets that can either be your big hitting damage in a bad situation, or that precious commodity to resupply yourself every chance that you can, or upgrade your weapons and make them more efficient. But you see, the thing is, none of that is necessarily different from the first game. In fact, it's nearly identical with the exception of 2 new guns. And this felt weird. Usually from entry to entry, at least something is added to shake up the game in some measurable way, but as far as I could tell from the first playthrough, it was business as usual. Different story, same game. Yeah. Well, it seems I forgot something about the Metro games. See, my first playthrough, in an effort to explore every area, collect every log, and learn everything I could about the story and options available to me, I played on Spartan and normal difficulty. Yes, this is the exact same mistake I made on 2033. No, I did not remember until I was about 3/4 of the way through the game and realized I was gonna have to do at least 2 more playthroughs because I screwed up from the beginning again. Anyway, now if you haven't played the Metro games, there are 2 difficulty settings you need to pick from. First, the environmental difficulty, Spartan and survival, then the physical difficulty, normal, hardcore, ranger, and ranger hardcore. Why is this important? Well, the Metro games change wildly based on your difficulty settings. Spartan and normal allow me to run around guns blazing with much more supplies to go around. Meanwhile, ranger and survival force me to play far more conservatively, pick my shots, and use every piece of supplies available to me. Arguably, and this is fully just my own opinion, survival and ranger difficulty is the real version of how the Metro games are intended to be played, simply due to how much it changes the game and puts so much more stock into survival and actually counting your shots. Missing a shot on ranger in survival mode is genuinely a problem some of the time because you have so limited shots. So essentially through that, you never really have enough ammo to kick the door down and absolutely blast a room of fascists away as much as you would like to. And because of that difficulty, here is where I discovered the most major and spectacular change Last Light had to offer. The freaking stealth. Oh my god, it's amazing. Of all the places to find the most satisfying and mechanically tight stealth gameplay, Metro was not the first place I would have looked. And don't get me wrong, stealth was there in Metro 2033, but it wasn't exactly the most reliable, and more often than not, I felt like I would be found for random reasons, or I would set off a single shot and the entire area knew exactly where I was. That is not the case in Last Light. I don't think there was a single time I was discovered that I honestly couldn't pinpoint the exact moment I screwed up and got myself seen, or took too long taking out a group of 2, or I didn't clearly define a path of another enemy and they walked directly into a body I had just taken down. And credit where credit is due, the stealth is very satisfying, partially because it's so punishing to the player. On the lower difficulties, getting discovered wasn't that big of a deal. You're gonna make a lot of noise shooting your way out, but you will definitely live through it. But on Ranger, oh boy, if you get discovered and a whole room opens up on you, you got maybe 1 or 2 hits before you're dead on the floor and starting the area over. But see, that's the thing. If. Keyword there, if. Look, it's very rare for me to enjoy stealth mechanics as much as this, simply due to the fact that a lot of the time, they can be a bit janky, and as the game progresses, unless the entire game was based on the stealth component, tend to start breaking their own established rules under the guise of difficulty. Not here though. No, not in Last Light. Metro Last Light establishes its stealth rules early and does not deviate from them. Your only truly silent methods of taking out the enemies is either your takedowns or the throwing knives. Your guns are also an option, whether it be be an air gun or a silenced rifle, but while it won't alert everyone in the room, the people closest to you and where the shot lands will at least hear something. Which, first off, I just gotta stop here. I applaud the fact that the suppressor, especially a makeshift one like in Metro, doesn't entirely make the shot non-existent. Contrary to some belief out there, a suppressor does not completely take the sound away from a gunshot. If you are within 20 to hell even 100 meters, depending on the caliber of the gun that was fired, yes, it's still going to make at least some noticeable noise. And on the other hand, some games take the route of, oh, you have a suppressor? Well, you can have a full-on gunfight and the dude sleeping over in the corner's not even gonna wake up. Bullshit. He's probably more deaf than the rest of us. Outside of your silent and semi-silent method, the game also displays to you the rule that if you make noise, someone will come to investigate it. So, taking the risk and firing off a semi-silent rifle to take down an NPC will cause someone to come investigate what that noise was, so be careful if you're just leaving bodies around. On top of that, on the unfortunate chance that you are seen, just because they spotted you for a second doesn't instantly mean they're going to alert the room. Staying still or trying to lure them to you is an option you can play with. Then on top of that, we have patrol paths, lights to knock out, and the ever so epic 3-man silent takedown, which, God, it feels so satisfying to take out a group of them and they didn't even know you were there. All of these different aspects make the stealth of Metro Last Light so satisfying. So much so that I began basing my entire loadout around stealth. Typically, what I would have done in 2033 was have at least one weapon for a heavy stealth situation, and the rest were for the sole purpose of taking out mutants or fascists or communists as quickly as possible. It was a lot of shotguns in Metro 2033. Meanwhile, here we are in Last Light, and very, very quickly, my entire kit was consumed with options for the stealth environment only. Typically, at least one air gun of some kind to deal with the unarmored enemies, a full set of throwing knives at all times, and 2 heavy-hitting silenced rifles, just to make sure I had some options for those, armor-plated enemies wielding fully automatic shotguns. God, those sucked. And with Metro Last Light seemingly giving you less chances to resupply at any of the given stations, when I did get that moment to resupply and change up the loadout, this consumed a lot of time and thought to make sure I had everything I needed in a stealth situation. An air gun was a great choice and a personal favorite, as it could deal with the unarmored enemies as well as spotlights with one good shot. But unfortunately, running into an area with heavily armored soldiers, the air gun was not really an option. I either needed to get right up on him for a takedown or risk a shot from a silenced rifle, hoping the whole room doesn't immediately become aware of me. So when it came to resupplying at the limited chances I had, I really needed to weigh the pros and cons of which situations I could be running into and kind of have a nice mix of everything in my kit. I also needed to pay attention to what I had as a truly silent means of takedown, because you can only carry 5 throwing knives, and when 4 or 5 guards tend to stack up in a group and have some coffee, you better hit every shot. All of these aspects just make the stealth so much fun and fair to such a degree, I found myself completing an area, feeling like I could have done it better or cleaner, and resetting to a checkpoint to try it again. It was genuinely that much fun. And that really wasn't the case when it came to 2033. Sure, it was there, but 9 times out of 10 it was easier and way quicker to just run through and blast some Nazis to Kingdom Come. But here, not only was it far and beyond the more fun option, it was really the only choice that made sense. In 2033, the stealth areas mainly had maybe 4 to 7 enemies total, bar a few larger instances. Last Light really flipped this on its head when it came to your human enemy encounters, because there wasn't just 5 or 10, hell, there wasn't even 15 sometimes. It was more like 20 to 25 in some areas, so alerting them was really not an option. On Ranger specifically, if you did let them see you for long enough and you didn't really have a position to run away, you might as well have restarted. This isn't because it's impossible to take them all in a gunfight. You 100% can, but on survival, you cannot risk wasting all of this ammo and supplies, as you may not see another station for a level or 2. So stealth was the way to get the most out of a limited amount of supplies, and it's such a treat to have such an amazing stealth gameplay system to make you want to spend more time being in the sneaky. I really don't think I can sing the praises of stealth in Metro Last Light enough, as the mechanics and feel of it are just that much fun and that satisfying, but it also manages to mix in so much deeper when it comes to the survival mode of the game. The constant desperation for ammo and supplies has you dreading that alerted noise cue. One, because you can pinpoint the exact moment where you screwed up and got yourself seen, so you may want to try it again to see if you can do it perfectly, but also because if you have no intention of restarting, what minor surplus in supplies and bullets you just may have gotten your hands on is about to be completely expended. Of all the things I expected to see in Metro Last Light, a stealth stealth survival masterpiece was not one of them. That's about it from me. Sorry for the random 2-week hiatus back there, but well, if I'm being honest, I didn't know what I wanted to say about Last Light originally because I had missed the stealth when I ran through it on a lower difficulty. And then, well, work and life are things we all gotta deal with. Anyway, if you enjoyed, maybe think about throwing me a like. If not, no pressure. Or if you think I completely missed something, let me know. Always love hearing people's opinions on these games. It's kind of fun to get everyone's perspective. Well, with any luck, I'll be able to get back to weekly videos now that some of these things have calmed down. So up next, we got some plans and I can't wait. Anyway, see ya.